It was an ordinary Saturday afternoon, the kind of day when the mall was bustling with energy. Shoppers moved between stores, their footsteps echoing on the polished floors. The hum of distant conversations blended with the sound of music drifting from the department store speakers. Everything seemed normal, until Mia stepped into the scene. Mia, a 17-year-old girl with bright eyes and a soft, radiant smile, was walking through the mall in her usual comfortable attire, a hoodie, jeans, and sneakers. She wasn't looking for anything in particular, just some time away from her homework, a moment to unwind before the week's stresses returned. She strolled past the jewelry store, stopping momentarily to admire a bracelet in the window. The lights inside the store caught the sparkle of the diamonds, but Mia wasn't interested in buying anything. She had come to clear her mind, not to shop. But little did she know, today wasn't going to be like any other visit. As Mia continued through the mall, she didn't notice the security guards following her. She wasn't being paranoid. She had simply grown accustomed to the usual glance from employees and customers. But today things were different. The guards were watching her closely. She could feel their eyes tracking her every move, though she didn't understand why. She passed the food court, picking up the scent of freshly baked pretzels. Mia wasn't hungry, but the warm smell made her stomach grumble. She smiled to herself, then turned toward the electronics store. It wasn't until she took a few steps into the store that she was stopped. A sharp voice cut through the atmosphere. "Excuse me, young lady," a security guard called, his tone flat and serious. Mia turned, a little surprised. "Is something wrong?" The guard didn't smile. His expression was cold, almost accusatory. "We've been watching you. We think you've stolen something." Mia blinked in confusion. "Stolen? What? I haven't taken anything." "Then what about the pair of headphones you've been eyeing?" Another voice chimed in, and Mia saw a second security guard step into view. "We saw you looking at them. You didn't pay for them when you left the store." Mia's heart dropped. She felt the sudden rush of blood in her face, but her voice remained steady. "I didn't take anything. I was just looking." The first guard shook his head slowly. "You need to come with us." Mia's chest tightened. She knew this was all a misunderstanding, but the guards weren't listening. The stares of bystanders added to the pressure, and she couldn't shake the feeling that everyone in the mall was now watching her. "I don't understand," Mia said, trying to stay calm. "I didn't do anything wrong. I was just walking through." But no one seemed to care. The guards were now escorting her toward the security office, their hands firmly on her arms. People were whispering, casting sideways glances at the young girl being marched through the mall like a criminal. Mia's mind raced. She wanted to protest, to scream that they were wrong, but something about the situation made it feel like no one would listen. It was as if the color of her skin had already spoken louder than her words. Just as they neared the security office, Mia saw a familiar figure approaching. Her heart skipped a beat. It was her father, Jason Carter. Jason wasn't just her dad. He was a businessman. A man who had worked his entire life to build a future for his family. He wasn't the type to get involved in small arguments, but when it came to his daughter, he was ready to fight for her with everything he had. He strode towards the scene with confidence, his presence immediately commanding attention. His sharp suit and determined expression were enough to make the security guards pause. Jason's eyes quickly locked onto Mia, and without missing a beat, he turned to the guards. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice firm but controlled. One of the guards hesitated, clearly uncomfortable under the intensity of Jason's gaze. "We believe this young lady has stolen something." Jason's brows furrowed in disbelief. "Stolen? My daughter? I don't think so." Mia's relief was palpable. "Dad, I didn't do anything wrong," she said, her voice breaking. "They're accusing me of stealing because I looked at a pair of headphones." The security guards exchanged uncertain glances. But before they could respond, Jason stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "I don't know what you think you're doing," he began, "but you need to understand one thing. I am the new owner of this mall." The words hung in the air like a bombshell. The guards froze, unsure of how to respond. Jason reached into his briefcase and pulled out a set of legal documents, handing them to one of the guards. "These papers state that I now own this entire property," he continued, his voice calm but filled with an undeniable authority. "And I won't stand for any of this nonsense. Now, release my daughter, and I expect an apology for this public humiliation." The guards took the papers, their faces pale with realization. They glanced nervously at each other, unsure of how to handle the situation. The air in the mall seemed to grow heavier as Jason's words sank in. The two security guards exchanged quick, nervous glances, clearly caught off guard by the revelation that the man standing before them wasn't just any concerned parent. He was the new owner of the entire shopping center. Mia could feel the tension shift in the room. The whispers from the surrounding shoppers grew louder, but no one dared to speak directly to Jason. His authoritative presence had already commanded the respect of everyone in the vicinity. One of the guards finally broke the silence, his voice shaky. "Sir, we had no idea. We thought she was acting suspiciously." His words came out in a stutter, his confidence completely eroded. Jason didn't flinch. He wasn't here for excuses. He was here to correct the wrong that had been done to his daughter. He turned to Mia, giving her a reassuring smile. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" he asked softly, his protective nature shining through. Mia nodded, though she was still shaken by the entire ordeal. She wasn't sure what hurt more, the way the guards had treated her, or the fact that they had assumed she was guilty because of the color of her skin. Her eyes welled up slightly, but she blinked away the tears. This wasn't the time to break down, not with her father here. Jason turned back to the guards, his eyes sharp. "Listen to me carefully," he said, his voice cutting through the tension. "I don't know what kind of practices you've been running here, but let me make one thing crystal clear. No one, especially not my daughter, will ever be treated like this in this mall again. Do I make myself clear?" The guards were now visibly uncomfortable. They nodded quickly, their earlier bravado gone. But it wasn't just them who had to answer for what had happened. Jason had bigger plans for the mall, plans that included real change. "Good," Jason said, straightening his jacket. "Now, I want to speak to the manager, immediately." Mia watched as her father's words sank in, the once bustling atmosphere around them now muted, almost like the mall itself was holding its breath. She knew her dad was powerful, but seeing him in action like this was different. It wasn't just his wealth or status, it was his integrity and resolve that made him someone people listened to. The security guards quickly scurried away, eager to resolve the situation before it escalated any further. Meanwhile, Mia's heart pounded in her chest, but there was a growing sense of empowerment as she stood next to her father. She was no longer the girl who was being wrongly accused. She was the daughter of the man who now controlled this place. The realization was both surreal and exhilarating. A few minutes later, the manager of the mall, a middle-aged man named Thomas, arrived at the scene. His face was pale, a mixture of nervousness and confusion written all over him. He had been informed of the incident by the security team, but had yet to grasp the full weight of the situation. Jason wasted no time. "Thomas," he greeted the manager with a firm handshake, his grip strong but professional. "I hope you understand the gravity of what just happened here." Thomas blinked, clearly disoriented. "Sir, I don't understand. What exactly is going on? I've never seen this kind of behavior from our staff." Jason shot him a pointed look. "I'm not asking for excuses, Thomas. What I'm telling you is that today, I saw firsthand how your security team treated my daughter. And let me tell you, it was completely unacceptable. Your staff accused her of theft, humiliated her in front of customers, and you, as the manager, didn't even bother to intervene." Thomas's face flushed with embarrassment. "I'm deeply sorry, Mr. Carter. I had no idea this was happening. I'll address it right away. It won't happen again, I promise." Jason didn't look convinced. "No, it won't. Because I'm not here to accept apologies. I'm here to ensure that this kind of treatment never happens again. From now on, you'll be running things differently." Thomas swallowed hard, his eyes darting nervously between Jason and Mia. He could feel the weight of the situation bearing down on him. But Jason wasn't giving him a way out. "You'll hold a meeting with all your staff," Jason continued, his tone unwavering. "And you'll make it clear that discrimination, in any form, will not be tolerated. You'll also ensure that everyone here, especially the security team, understands the importance of treating customers with respect, no matter their appearance, age, or background." Mia could see the shift in Thomas's demeanor as he realized the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just about a single incident. It was about the future of the entire mall. "I'll do that, sir," Thomas replied, his voice quieter now. "You have my word." Jason nodded, satisfied with the response. But he wasn't done yet. "There's one more thing," he added, his eyes narrowing slightly. "I want an investigation into how your security team handled this situation. I want to know if this is part of a larger pattern of behavior. If so, changes will be made." Thomas was now looking at the ground, clearly ashamed. Understood. I'll take care of it. Mia, who had been standing silently beside her father, felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had always known her dad had the ability to make things right, but seeing him so calm and controlled in a situation that could have turned disastrous was something new. He was more than just a businessman. He was a force to be reckoned with. Good, Jason said, his voice softening just a little. Now, I'm going to give you a chance to make things right, Thomas. Don't waste it. As Thomas hurried away to take care of the situation, Jason turned to Mia, his face softening with a proud smile. You okay? Mia nodded, her confidence slowly returning. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Dad. Jason placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. No one is going to treat you like that again. Not here, not anywhere. Mia smiled, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude and pride. I think I'll feel a little different coming here now. Jason chuckled, his eyes twinkling. You should. This mall is yours now, too. Just remember, always stand tall, no matter what. The following days after the incident at the mall felt like a whirlwind for Mia and Jason. News of the altercation had spread quickly, not only among the staff at the mall, but also among local shoppers and residents. Whispers followed them everywhere they went, but they weren't the same whispers that had surrounded Mia that fateful afternoon. This time, they were filled with curiosity, admiration, and respect. For Mia, it was a strange sensation. One moment, she was just another teenager trying to make her way in the world, and the next, her name was on the lips of everyone in town. Jason's decision to step in and handle the situation so decisively had turned what could have been a traumatic experience into something much bigger, something that had the power to create real change. But as the buzz continued to grow, Mia's thoughts often returned to that initial moment in the mall. The way she had been accused of theft, the way her skin had been the deciding factor in how she was treated. It still stung. However, the more she reflected on it, the more she realized how powerful the situation had become. Her dad had not just defended her. He had defended what was right, and in doing so, he had shifted the power dynamics of the entire mall. The next morning, Mia and Jason arrived at the mall early. The air felt different this time as they walked through the front entrance, their footsteps echoing in the quiet hallway. Mia could almost feel the mall watching her, waiting to see what would happen next. Jason had told her that this was her time to make an impact, to take charge of her future and the future of everyone working here. Inside the mall's main office, Jason had already begun to implement his vision. The changes he had promised were already taking shape. The first task he had tackled was making sure that the security team understood the gravity of the situation. It wasn't just about punishing the two guards who had wrongfully accused Mia. It was about building a culture of respect and inclusion from the top down. As Mia and Jason entered the conference room, Thomas, the mall manager, was waiting for them. His expression was less tense than it had been during their last meeting, but there was still a lingering unease in his eyes. He knew that Jason's arrival marked a turning point in the way things were going to be run at the mall. The power had shifted, and Thomas was just beginning to understand what that meant for him. "Good morning, Mr. Carter." "Miss Mia." Thomas greeted them with a polite though slightly nervous smile. "I've been following through with the instructions you gave me. The staff meeting was held yesterday, and we've started to implement some changes right away." Mia felt a sense of pride swell within her. It was happening. Change was already in motion. "I'm glad to hear that," she said, her voice calm but filled with a quiet determination. "I want to make sure that everything is moving in the right direction." Jason nodded approvingly. "I'll be overseeing everything closely. The first step is ensuring that every single employee understands the new standards. We don't just need compliance, we need understanding. This is about creating a space where everyone feels respected." Thomas shifted uncomfortably in his chair but nodded. "We're doing that, sir. We're also implementing sensitivity training and updating our protocols for handling situations like the one that happened with Mia. I've spoken with the staff about treating every customer equally, regardless of their appearance, background, or any other factors." Mia could sense the sincerity in Thomas's voice, but there was still something about the way he spoke that made her wary. She had seen how quickly things could go wrong when people were too focused on just fixing the problem, rather than truly understanding it. "Good," Jason replied, his eyes narrowing slightly. "But this isn't just about fixing a single mistake. This is about changing the culture of this entire mall. From the top down, everyone needs to be on board." "I understand," Thomas said, his voice quieter now. "We've already started with the management team. I'll make sure the rest of the staff follows suit." Jason looked over at Mia. "You're going to be involved in this too, sweetheart," he said, his voice filled with pride. "We're building something bigger than just a mall. This is about creating a place where people can come and feel safe, welcomed, and treated fairly." Mia's heart swelled at her father's words. It wasn't just about her. This was about everyone. She could see the potential for real change, not just for the people who worked at the mall, but for the customers who walked through its doors every day. She glanced at Thomas, her expression serious. "I want to be a part of those meetings. I want to help with the training sessions. I want to make sure that what happened to me never happens again." Thomas nodded quickly, though his discomfort was still palpable. "Of course, Miss Mia. I'll make the arrangements." Jason smiled at his daughter. "I knew you'd want to take charge. Let's make sure this place becomes a shining example of how businesses should treat their employees and customers." Over the next few weeks, the mall underwent a significant transformation. Mia was deeply involved in the process, sitting in on meetings with the management team, reviewing new training materials, and even helping with the design of a new customer service initiative. The sensitivity training sessions for the staff became a cornerstone of the mall's new direction, and Mia found herself standing up in front of the group more often than she had ever imagined. She shared her experiences, her thoughts on how to create an inclusive environment, and how small changes could make a big difference in the way people felt when they walked through the doors. The changes weren't immediate, but they were undeniably powerful. The atmosphere in the mall slowly began to shift. Customers started to notice the difference, and employees who had once been hesitant about the new policies began to embrace them. One afternoon, as Mia and Jason walked through the newly revamped mall, they couldn't help but notice the change in the energy. The once tense atmosphere had lifted, replaced by an air of respect and unity. Shoppers moved with more confidence, and employees smiled at each other, knowing they were part of something bigger than just a place to work. Mia looked up at her father, her heart full. "This place feels different. I can't believe how much has changed in such a short time." Jason grinned, his eyes proud. "This is just the beginning, Mia. You've helped start something incredible here. You should be proud of what you've done." Mia smiled, realizing that the mall was no longer just a place to shop. It was a symbol of how one moment of injustice could spark an entire revolution of change. And for her, it wasn't just about the mall anymore. It was about creating a world where everyone, no matter their skin color or background, had the right to feel seen, heard, and respected. Despite the momentum building inside the mall, not everyone was on board with the changes. The whispers that had once been about Mia and her father's arrival began to shift into something less favorable. Among the ranks of the employees, there was a growing sense of unease, a resistance to the new policies Jason and Mia were working so hard to implement. Not all of them were willing to accept the new way of doing things, especially those who had been part of the old guard. The ones who had been there when the mall's culture had been defined by indifference, exclusion, and judgment. It was the evening after a particularly busy day when Mia first noticed the shift. She was walking out of the staff break room, a cup of coffee in her hand, when she overheard a conversation from a group of employees gathered near the back of the mall. She paused, pretending not to listen, but her ears caught fragments of the exchange. "I don't know about this whole equality thing. It's like we're supposed to tiptoe around everyone now," one of the security guards, a man named Carl, said. "This used to be a job where you could just do your work, keep your head down, and go home. Now it feels like we're walking on eggshells all the time." "Yeah, but you can't deny that the changes are happening," another employee, a cashier named Linda, replied. "I mean, look around. There's way less tension now. People are smiling more, customers are happier. And that means better sales, right?" Carl scoffed. "Sales have nothing to do with respect, Linda. It's about keeping things the way they were. We've been doing things the same way for years. Now they expect us to change overnight? To treat everyone like they're our best friends? It's just not natural." Mia stood still for a moment, her heart sinking. She'd known that change wasn't going to be easy. But hearing this kind of resistance up close made her realize just how deep the problem went. The mall had never been about creating a welcoming, inclusive environment. It had been about convenience and routine. Now that the balance was shifting, some people felt like their positions were threatened, like they were being forced to abandon everything they had ever known. Mia took a deep breath, reminding herself that the resistance was inevitable. Change was never easy, especially for people who had grown comfortable in a system that worked for them, even if it hurt others. But the truth was, Mia and her father were determined to see this through. They had started something bigger than just a mall. It was about changing a mindset, breaking down walls, and building something sustainable that would outlast the individuals who resisted it. She quickly walked back to the office where Jason was finishing up a call with one of the local suppliers. Mia shut the door behind her, her expression thoughtful. "Dad," she began, her voice steady but concerned. "I overheard some of the staff today. It sounds like there's some pushback against everything we've been trying to do here." Jason looked up, his brow furrowing. "I knew it wouldn't be smooth sailing. Not everyone's going to be on board right away." Mia nodded. "But it's more than just a few complaints. It's like some of them really don't believe in what we're trying to do here. They're resistant to change, and it's not just about being uncomfortable. They're actually angry about it." Jason sighed, placing his phone down. "I figured as much. Change makes people uneasy, especially when they feel like their way of life is being threatened. But what we're doing here isn't just about being nice or politically correct. This is about creating a culture of respect and fairness, and that's non-negotiable." Mia took a seat across from him. "What do we do now? I mean, how do we deal with this kind of resistance?" Jason leaned back in his chair, deep in thought. "We address it head on. I'll be having another meeting with the management team tomorrow. We need to make it clear that this isn't a suggestion, it's a requirement. The new policies we've implemented are here to stay, and if some of the staff can't handle that, then they'll have to leave." "I agree," Mia said firmly, her gaze unwavering. "But it has to go beyond just telling them what they should do. I want to talk to some of them. Find out why they feel the way they do. Maybe they don't understand what this really means." Jason gave her a proud smile. "I knew you'd see it that way. People don't change because they're told to. They change when they understand why. You're right. We need to bring them on board, but we also need to make them understand the bigger picture." The next day, Mia requested a series of one-on-one meetings with the employees who seemed most resistant. She wanted to hear their stories, their concerns, and their fears. While Jason focused on addressing the issues with management, Mia took it upon herself to connect with the staff on a personal level. She understood that in order to create lasting change, she had to help them see the value in what they were doing. The first meeting was with Carl, the security guard who had voiced the loudest concerns. He was gruff with a no-nonsense attitude that made it clear he wasn't going to be easily swayed. But Mia wasn't intimidated. She had seen enough in her own life to know that when people felt threatened or misunderstood, it often came from a place of insecurity. "Carl," Mia began, her voice calm but direct, "I know you've had concerns about the changes we've been making here. Can you tell me more about why you feel the way you do?" Carl leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Look, I've been working here for a long time. I'm not some young kid fresh out of school. I've seen how things work. We've always just done our jobs, kept the peace, and gone home. Now, it feels like we're being forced to change everything we've known." Mia listened carefully, nodding. "I get that. Change can feel uncomfortable, especially when it's something you've never had to think about before. But the way we used to do things, ignoring certain behaviors, making assumptions about people based on their appearance, it hurt people. And we have the power to stop that from happening now. We can make this a place where everyone is treated fairly." Carl seemed to soften a little. "I never meant to hurt anyone. I just didn't think it was that big of a deal." "That's the thing," Mia said. "You didn't think it was a big deal because it never affected you. But for others it was everything. It's time for us to see things from other people's perspectives." Carl looked down, his expression thoughtful. "Maybe you're right," he muttered. "I guess I've never really thought about it that way." Mia smiled gently. "It's a process, Carl. It takes time, but we're all in this together." The days following Mia's meetings with the staff were tense, but a shift was slowly beginning to take place. Carl, the security guard, had been one of the toughest nuts to crack, but the conversation they had shared seemed to have planted a seed. He was quieter now, more reflective. Mia noticed small changes in his behavior. He greeted customers with a warmer smile, and the harshness that had once characterized his interactions with certain shoppers had softened. It wasn't perfect yet, but it was a start. Mia knew that this wouldn't be an overnight transformation. People didn't change just because they were told to. They had to feel the shift in their hearts and minds, but she was determined to be patient. Her father, too, had insisted that they'd take the long view on this. Creating an inclusive, respectful mall environment wasn't something that could be fixed with a single conversation. It was a process, but Mia wasn't prepared for what would happen next. It was just after lunch on a quiet Tuesday when she received a call from Jason. The tone in his voice was unusually serious, and Mia's stomach dropped when she heard his words. "Mia, I need you to meet me in the office. It's about Carl," he said, his voice strained. Mia felt a chill crawl up her spine. She had hoped that Carl's change of heart would be permanent, but there was something in Jason's voice that made her fear the worst. She didn't waste any time, rushing through the hallways toward her father's office. When she arrived, Jason was standing by the window, his arms crossed, staring out at the bustling mall below. He turned when he heard her approach, his face tight with concern. "What happened?" Mia asked, her voice a whisper. Jason motioned for her to sit. "I just got a report from one of the employees. Carl, he had a run-in with a customer. A woman. A regular who shops here. She's claiming that Carl was rude to her, but it's worse than that. She's accusing him of discrimination." Mia's heart sank. She had hoped that Carl's softer approach would carry through, but it seemed that old habits were harder to break than she'd realized. "What exactly happened?" Mia asked, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. Jason took a deep breath, shaking his head. "It's not completely clear, but from what I gather, Carl made some comments to this woman that sounded off color. She says he accused her of trying to scam the store because of her appearance. I'm having a hard time believing it, but this is serious, Mia. If this gets out, it could undo everything we've worked for." Mia felt the weight of the moment settle in. She had known there would be challenges, but this was different. This was a setback, a reminder that the old culture didn't disappear overnight. It could still show its face at the most unexpected moments, and when it did, it was dangerous. "Do you think Carl meant it? Do you think it was deliberate?" Mia asked, trying to process everything. Jason looked down, conflicted. "I don't know, but it doesn't matter. The perception is everything, Mia. If the customers feel uncomfortable or disrespected, that's what people will remember. We can't afford to let that slide." Mia's mind was racing. She knew what needed to be done. It wasn't just about addressing Carl's actions. It was about reinforcing the message that this kind of behavior wouldn't be tolerated, no matter the intention. "I need to talk to him," Mia said, standing up from her chair. "I need to find out exactly what happened. We can't let this linger." Jason nodded gravely. "I'll have Carl come to the office. But Mia, be careful. We don't want to make him feel like he's under attack." Mia nodded, taking a deep breath. She could already feel the tension building, the weight of the responsibility pressing on her shoulders. This wasn't just about one employee. It was about everything she and her father were working to build. The walls of progress they had started to build could crumble in an instant if they didn't handle this situation with care. Minutes later, Carl walked into the office. His face was drawn, his posture stiff. He knew something was wrong, and Mia could sense his unease. "Carl, thank you for coming," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I understand there's been an issue with one of the customers. Can you tell me what happened?" Carl glanced at Jason, who was standing by the window, his arms crossed. It's complicated," Carl began, his voice low. "I didn't mean to cause any trouble, but that woman, she just looked like she was trying to pull a fast one. She came in with an attitude, and I was just trying to do my job. I asked her for ID and she didn't like it. I didn't think much of it. But then she started getting loud. I may have said some things I shouldn't have." Mia sat down, her gaze steady. "What kind of things?" Carl shifted uncomfortably. "I might have told her she didn't belong here, that she looked like someone who'd try to scam the store. I didn't mean it the way it sounded, Mia. I was just frustrated." Mia took a deep breath, trying to process Carl's words. "Carl, I get it. You've been here a long time, and sometimes it's easy to let your frustrations get the best of you. But you have to understand. Our customers, especially people of color, already face so many challenges. They come here looking for a safe space. When you speak to them like that, even if you didn't mean it, it hurts them." Carl looked down, guilt washing over his face. "I didn't think about it like that. I just didn't like the way she was acting. I've been working security for years, and I've seen people try to take advantage of us. I guess I just assumed she was one of those people." Mia leaned forward, her voice softer now. "I know it's hard, Carl. You've worked in a tough environment. But now we have a responsibility to make this mall a place where everyone feels welcome, no matter their appearance, their background, or their history." Jason spoke up from the window, his voice firm but not unkind. "This isn't about making excuses, Carl. We need you to step up and do better. We all do. The kind of behavior you exhibited, it can't happen again. We'll help you. But it's up to you to change. Carl nodded slowly, his shoulders sagging as he realized the gravity of what he had done. I understand. I'm sorry, Mia. I'll do better. I promise. Mia sighed with relief, but she knew that this moment was just a small part of a much bigger journey. Thank you, Carl. I believe you. Now, let's work together to make sure this never happens again. The following weeks felt like a marathon. After the incident with Carl, Mia knew that the road ahead would require not just patience, but strategic action. Rebuilding trust wasn't something that could be done with a few quick apologies. It required consistency, effort, and a clear demonstration that things had truly changed. She wasn't just focused on Carl anymore. It was about the entire mall from top to bottom. Carl had been disciplined but also given the opportunity to attend diversity and sensitivity training. He was willing to learn, and Mia appreciated that. She believed in second chances. But it was clear to her that the real challenge was in the bigger picture, changing the culture, not just one person. Mia had called for a meeting with all the mall employees, including the security staff, the retail employees, and the management team. She wanted to make it clear that while the incident with Carl had been resolved, the deeper issue still needed to be addressed. She wasn't just a mall owner. She was also the person leading this change. The meeting was set for a Friday morning. As the employees gathered in the conference room, Mia stood at the front, her posture straight and her face serious. Jason sat next to her, offering silent support. Mia started by acknowledging the challenges. I know things haven't been easy here, she began, her voice steady. And I'm not going to pretend that everything's perfect, but we're here to have an honest conversation, to look at what went wrong, and how we can all work together to do better. There were murmurs in the room, a few nervous glances exchanged. Mia knew the employees were uneasy. This was uncharted territory. Many of them had worked at the mall for years, and the old ways had been ingrained in them. It was going to take time, but Mia was determined to guide them through it. The reality is, she continued, what happened with Carl isn't an isolated incident. It's a symptom of something deeper, something we need to fix. We have to confront our biases, our assumptions, and the ways in which we treat people who don't look like us, who don't come from the same background as we do. A few employees shifted uncomfortably, but Mia pressed on. This mall is a business, yes, but it's also a community. We want people to feel welcome here no matter who they are. It doesn't matter if they're shopping for a designer purse or just grabbing a coffee. They deserve to be treated with respect, dignity, and kindness. She paused, allowing her words to sink in. I know this is going to take time, but I'm asking each of you to think about the way you interact with customers, to reflect on your words and actions, and to ask yourself if you're creating an environment that welcomes everyone. The room was silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Mia could tell the employees were processing what she had said. Some of them were uncomfortable, some defensive, but others seemed genuinely thoughtful. That was the first step. Awareness. Jason stepped forward to speak. We've already begun the process of diversity training for the staff, and that will continue, he said. But this isn't just about attending a few seminars. It's about taking responsibility for how we show up every single day. It's about accountability. Mia nodded. Exactly. We can't pretend that this is something that will be fixed overnight. But we will keep moving forward. Every day we'll take one step closer to creating a place where everyone feels respected. As the meeting continued, Mia could see the mixed reactions among the staff. Some were receptive, nodding along as she spoke, while others still looked skeptical. But that was okay. Change never came easily, and Mia was prepared for the slow, difficult process of shifting attitudes and beliefs. The meeting ended with a commitment to follow through on the action items they had discussed: continued sensitivity training, better communication with customers, and more accountability across the board. Mia left the conference room feeling a mix of relief and determination. She had said what needed to be said, and now it was time to make sure those words turned into action. As the days passed, the atmosphere in the mall slowly began to change. The staff began to interact with customers in a friendlier, more respectful way. Carl in particular had made significant progress. Mia had noticed him smiling more, engaging with shoppers in a way that felt genuine, and even receiving compliments from some of the customers who had once been wary of him. But Mia knew that the real test would come when the mall was busy again. Weekends, with their influx of shoppers, would be the true measure of whether the culture had shifted or whether it was just a temporary change. She was prepared to stay vigilant, to keep the momentum going, and to be an active participant in making sure the new environment wasn't just a facade. One Saturday, a few weeks after the meeting, Mia was walking through the mall when she overheard a conversation between two customers. They were in one of the clothing stores, chatting about the service they had received that day. "Did you notice how polite everyone is now?" one customer said. "It's so refreshing. I used to avoid coming here because I felt like the staff was always judging me." The other customer nodded. "I noticed that too. It feels different now. More welcoming." Mia smiled to herself, a quiet sense of pride welling up inside her. She knew that the road ahead was still long and that there would be setbacks, but for the first time, she felt like they were heading in the right direction. Later that day, Mia received a message from Carl. It was a simple note, but it meant the world to her. "I just wanted to say thank you for giving me a second chance. I'm working hard to make sure I do right by the customers and the team. I appreciate your patience, Mia." Mia smiled as she read the message, her heart lifting. It wasn't just about fixing one mistake. It was about the chance to grow, to improve, and to change. And she was proud of the way Carl had embraced that. Weeks had passed since the pivotal meeting, and Mia was beginning to see the results of her efforts. The mall was no longer a place where people felt uncomfortable or out of place. Customers were beginning to notice the difference, and Mia's faith in her vision was slowly being reinforced by small but significant moments. But Mia knew that true change didn't come from a few good weeks. It came from consistency. She had seen businesses that had failed to maintain their efforts after a short burst of progress. She couldn't afford to let that happen here. She needed to ensure that the employees, from security to retail staff, were not just going through the motions, but were genuinely committed to the values they had discussed in their meetings. It was a Saturday afternoon when Mia got a call that would put her leadership to the test. Jason had left her a voicemail while she was in a meeting. He was calm, but there was an urgency in his voice. "Mia, we've got a situation in the food court. Security's been called. There's a young man who says he's being discriminated against. Apparently, some of the staff have been giving him trouble. I need you here." Mia's heart sank. She had worked so hard to make the mall a place of inclusivity and respect, and now it seemed that the old behaviors were creeping back in. The last thing she wanted was for everything to fall apart, especially after the strides they had made. She immediately left the meeting, heading toward the food court. Her mind raced. What had happened? Who was involved? Had the change been temporary after all? As she approached the bustling center of the mall, Mia saw a group of people gathered near one of the food court tables. In the middle of the group was a young man, no older than 20, his arms crossed in frustration. He was dressed casually, his hoodie pulled over his head, but there was something about him that stood out: the anger in his posture, the firmness in his expression, and the way the crowd was watching him. Mia walked over and Jason was already there, speaking with the young man in a calm tone. Mia's presence seemed to shift the energy in the room. The onlookers fell silent, and the young man's gaze snapped to her. His eyes were full of suspicion and anger. "Are you in charge?" he asked, his voice sharper than she had expected. Mia nodded, keeping her voice calm. "I'm the owner of this mall. What's going on here?" One of the food court staff members, a young woman named Emily, stepped forward, her face pale. This man was acting suspicious. She began hesitantly. "He walked around the food court for a while, and when we asked him if he was planning to buy something, he just ignored us. We thought he was loitering, so we called security." The young man let out a bitter laugh. "I was just looking for a place to sit. I wasn't bothering anyone." Mia's eyes narrowed. She had seen this kind of behavior before, discrimination masked as protocol. She looked at Emily. "You called security on him because he was sitting in the food court." Emily fumbled, clearly flustered. "He wasn't buying anything. That's not your decision to make." Mia interrupted, her voice firm but controlled. "It's not up to you to decide who belongs here and who doesn't. This mall is for everyone. For customers, for visitors. And if someone wants to sit here, they have that right. No one should be made to feel like they don't." Jason stepped in, taking a step toward the young man. "What's your name, sir?" he asked gently. "Jordan," the young man replied, his tone still sharp but slightly softened by the attention Mia and Jason were giving him. Mia gave him a nod. "Jordan, I'm really sorry for what's happened here. This isn't the kind of environment we want to have. I'll make sure this doesn't happen again." She turned to Emily and the others who had been involved. "I want you all to understand something very clearly. We do not tolerate discrimination here. The staff, the security team, Anyone working in this mall needs to treat everyone with respect, regardless of their background, appearance, or what they're wearing. If someone is here to shop or to sit down and enjoy their time, that's their choice, and you should respect that. The group stood in stunned silence, but Mia could see that some of them were already beginning to understand. Emily's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "I didn't mean to," she started, but Mia raised her hand, signaling her to stop. "It's not about intentions, Emily. It's about how your actions made Jordan feel. You can't take that back now, but you can learn from it. We all can." Mia then turned her attention back to Jordan. "I'm truly sorry for the way you were treated. This is not the way we do things here. I hope you'll accept my apology." Jordan was silent for a moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. A brief but genuine smile. "Thanks," he said. "It's just frustrating, you know. I was just trying to have a peaceful lunch." Mia nodded. "I completely understand, and I'll make sure we do better." Jordan glanced around at the staff who had been involved in the incident, their heads down in shame. He didn't say anything more, but Mia could tell the message had hit home. Before he walked away, Mia called out to him, "Jordan, I'd like to invite you to have lunch on me today. We have a few places here that I think you'll enjoy. Please, let me make it right." Jordan hesitated for a moment, then shrugged. "Sure, why not?" As Mia escorted him to one of the food court restaurants, she couldn't help but feel a sense of resolve. This wasn't just about putting out fires. It was about creating a culture where these fires couldn't even start. It wasn't going to be easy, and it certainly wasn't going to be quick. But Mia knew one thing for sure. She was in this for the long haul. The following week, word of the food court incident spread through the mall like wildfire. Mia had expected some backlash. After all, people didn't like to be confronted about their behavior. But she hadn't anticipated just how much of an impact the situation would have. Emails, both positive and negative, flooded in. Customers and employees alike were weighing in on the event, and Mia knew she had to address it head on. She had always believed in transparency, and this moment was no different. If she wanted to truly create lasting change, she couldn't shy away from the challenge. She had to take responsibility for her decisions and show that she was willing to face the consequences of her actions. As Mia sat down in her office, her assistant, Lisa, knocked on the door and entered with a stack of letters in hand. "Here are the emails, Mia," she said, handing over the pile. "There's also a video from one of the customers who was recording when it happened. She posted it online. It's already gone viral." Mia sighed, rubbing her temples. She knew this was coming. Public incidents, especially when they involved discrimination, always brought a wave of attention. But this was different. This wasn't just about a single incident. This was about changing an entire culture. If she didn't handle it right, it could undo everything they had worked for. Lisa sat down across from her. "Do you want me to go through the messages with you?" Mia nodded. "Yes, let's start with the positives first. I need to see the support." The first few emails were from customers expressing their gratitude for the way Mia had handled the situation. One thanked her for setting an example of leadership and inclusivity. Another described how, as a person of color, they had experienced similar discrimination in the past and were glad to see someone taking action. But as Mia continued, the tone of the emails began to shift. Some were skeptical about the speed of change, questioning if one incident could truly lead to long-term transformation. Others were angry, blaming her for letting things get out of hand in the first place. They demanded that she fire the staff involved and institute strict zero-tolerance policies. Mia knew those voices were out there. She had seen it in the corporate world before. People who didn't want to hear about systemic issues or cultural change. They wanted quick solutions, without the work that real transformation demanded. "I can't just fire them, Lisa," Mia said softly, placing the emails aside. "That's not going to fix the problem. I need to show everyone that change takes time, but it's possible. They need to be a part of it." Lisa nodded thoughtfully. "So, what's the plan? How do you want to address it?" Mia leaned back in her chair, thinking carefully. "We need to open up the conversation. I'm going to host a town hall meeting for everyone, staff and customers. I want to hear their thoughts. I want to understand where we went wrong and how we can do better." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "A town hall? With customers?" "Absolutely," Mia replied. "I'm not just the mall owner. I'm also a part of this community. I need to hear from everyone, employees, customers, anyone who feels like they have something to say." Lisa smiled, clearly impressed by Mia's bold approach. "You're really doing this?" "Of course," Mia said with a confident smile. "If we're going to make this mall a place where everyone feels safe and respected, we can't just talk about it. We have to live it. And that means being accountable, even when it's uncomfortable." The town hall meeting took place 2 days later. It was held in the spacious community area near the center of the mall. Mia had made sure to advertise it well, reaching out to the customers through social media, email newsletters, and flyers around the mall. She wasn't sure what to expect, whether the turnout would be big, or if people would show up at all. But as the time neared, she was pleasantly surprised by the crowd that had gathered. The room was full, and people were eager to engage. Mia stood at the front, the room filled with faces, some familiar and some new. She took a deep breath before stepping up to the microphone, her heart pounding in her chest. This wasn't just another meeting. This was a moment that could shape the future of the mall, and, in a way, the community itself. "Thank you all for coming today," Mia began, her voice steady and clear. "I know that recent events have made many of us question what kind of place this mall is, and I want to take responsibility for that. What happened with Jordan was a failure of leadership. It was a failure of our values, and it's something that we need to fix." The room was silent, everyone listening intently. Mia could feel the weight of their attention on her. "I don't have all the answers, but I'm here today to listen to you, to hear what's been going on, what's been bothering you, and what you think we can do to make this mall a better place for everyone." A hand shot up from the back of the room, and Mia nodded toward the young woman who had spoken up. "Hi, I'm Layla," the woman said, her voice nervous but determined. "I've been coming here for years, and I've seen things, little things that add up. The way some of the staff look at people of color, the way security follows certain people around the store. It's not just one thing. It's a whole system that's been in place for too long." Mia's eyes softened, and she nodded in understanding. "I hear you, Layla, and I want you to know that we are going to change that. We're going to address this head on." A few other people chimed in with similar stories, of feeling unwelcome, of being ignored, of being treated differently based on how they looked or what they wore. It was painful to hear, but Mia knew this was the only way forward. These were the truths that had to be acknowledged if real change was going to happen. As the discussion continued, Mia felt a shift in the room. The anger, the resentment, the frustration. It was still there, but now it was channeled into something different. People were talking, sharing, coming together. And Mia knew that this was the beginning of something important. By the end of the meeting, Mia had received more than enough feedback to put a concrete plan in motion. She promised to implement mandatory sensitivity and inclusion training for all employees, starting with security. She also announced the formation of a new community advisory board, made up of employees and customers, that would meet quarterly to discuss how the mall could improve. The crowd left the meeting with mixed emotions, but Mia felt a sense of relief. The mall had a long way to go, but they were on the right path. As she sat back in her office later that evening, Mia looked out the window at the lights of the mall, her thoughts swirling. There was still much work to be done, but for the first time in a long while, she felt hopeful. They had started a conversation. They had begun to create a space where people didn't just exist. They thrived, and that was the first step. The following weeks were a whirlwind. The mall was bustling as usual, but there was an undercurrent of change in the air. As Mia and her team moved forward with the promises made during the town hall, the atmosphere became a mix of anticipation and resistance. Some employees, especially the long-timers, were skeptical. They had worked under the old system for years, and the prospect of change, particularly the new training and policies, was daunting. Many saw the new directives as unnecessary or an overreaction. But Mia knew better than to ignore their concerns. She couldn't afford to alienate anyone. This was a time for healing, for building unity, and for leading with compassion. The first mandatory inclusion and sensitivity training session was met with mixed emotions. Some employees had shown up with open minds, ready to learn. Others, however, were reluctantly dragging their feet, visibly uncomfortable. Mia had been present during the training, watching every reaction closely. It wasn't easy. The trainers began by addressing unconscious bias and discrimination, topics that were often brushed under the rug. As the discussion unfolded, Mia saw the discomfort on several faces, but she also noticed something else, an awakening. Slowly but surely, the employees began to listen. Despite the progress made during the training sessions, there were still those who didn't fully embrace the new culture Mia was trying to build. One afternoon, Mia received an anonymous letter slipped under her office door. It was scrawled with bold, defiant words. "Don't think your little town hall meeting can change everything. Some things will never change." Mia held the letter in her hand, staring at it for a long time. It was a reminder that, even with the best of intentions, real change couldn't be achieved overnight. But this letter, as disheartening as it was, only fueled her determination. She wasn't going to back down now. She couldn't. Mia sat down with Lisa and the rest of the management team to discuss their next steps. They needed to move forward with caution, but they couldn't slow down the momentum. They had to show everyone, including those skeptical employees, that this wasn't just about compliance. It was about creating a new culture for the future. "I think we need a more visible way to showcase the changes we're implementing," Mia said, her voice steady but resolute. "People need to see that we're committed to this. We need tangible action." Lisa nodded. "What about creating a special Community Day event? We can invite people from all backgrounds to come and share their experiences. It'll show our commitment to being inclusive, and it'll give our customers a direct way to connect with us." Mia smiled at the suggestion. "I love that idea. It's a great way to keep the conversation going and make sure people feel heard. Let's make it happen." The Community Day was set for the following month, and Mia worked tirelessly with her team to ensure the event would be a success. The mall would host local community leaders, artists, musicians, and storytellers, all celebrating the diversity that made the community unique. In addition to the entertainment, there would be booths set up for people to voice their concerns or suggestions on how the mall could improve. It was the perfect opportunity to show customers that the mall was a place where they were valued and respected. As the event date approached, anticipation built. People talked about it online, and word spread fast. There was a buzz in the air, and Mia could sense that this could be a turning point. If Community Day went well, it could silence some of the critics and prove that the mall was ready to lead the charge for inclusivity in a meaningful way. The big day arrived, and the mall was transformed. Decorations were set up, music played, and booths were filled with people eager to share their thoughts and ideas. Mia stood at the entrance, greeting people with a smile as they entered. She felt the weight of the moment. The anticipation was palpable. As the day wore on, Mia saw something remarkable happen. Customers, employees, and even the mall's security guards were talking to one another. They shared stories, experiences, and ideas. It was the kind of atmosphere Mia had hoped for, a space where people felt safe to be vulnerable, to speak their truths, and to come together as a community. By the end of the day, Mia felt a sense of accomplishment. It had been a success, far beyond her expectations. Not only had the community embraced the event, but the atmosphere in the mall felt different. There was a tangible shift, a sense of pride, a sense of belonging. But even as things seemed to be improving, Mia knew there were still challenges ahead. The changes in the mall had caused ripples, and not everyone was on board. The mall's management was still adjusting to the new approach, and there were those who resented the shift in culture. Some employees had been trying to sabotage the progress by subtly undermining the new policies. One afternoon, Mia received a call from an unexpected source, her father. He hadn't been in touch much since the mall had changed ownership, but he'd been watching the events unfold with interest. "Mia," her father's voice crackled over the phone. "I've been hearing some things about the mall. It sounds like things are improving, but I'm concerned. I don't want you to lose control." Mia frowned. "What do you mean?" "You've been too lenient," her father continued, his tone stern. "This kind of change, this cultural overhaul, it needs to be more forceful. People need to understand that you won't tolerate dissent." Mia's heart sank. She knew her father had been more traditional in his approach to business. He believed in a hard line, in doing whatever was necessary to ensure success. But Mia couldn't do it that way. She had to believe in the people she was leading. "I'm not going to force anyone to change, Dad," Mia said firmly. "This is about creating a culture where people feel like they belong. If I push them too hard, we'll lose the progress we've made." Her father was silent for a moment. "You're too idealistic, Mia. But do what you think is best." The conversation with her father had unsettled Mia. She knew he meant well, but his words echoed in her mind, reminding her of how high the stakes were. She couldn't afford to let her guard down now. The progress they had made was fragile, and there were still obstacles ahead. A few days after the event, Mia was faced with a difficult decision. One of her top managers, the one in charge of the food court, had been caught making discriminatory comments to a group of customers. It was a direct violation of the new policies, and Mia knew what needed to be done. She had to act swiftly and decisively. But when Mia called the manager into her office to discuss the issue, she was met with resistance. The manager denied the allegations, claiming that they were just misunderstandings and miscommunications. But Mia wasn't swayed. She had the evidence she needed, and she wasn't willing to let this slide. "I can't ignore this," Mia said firmly, her eyes unwavering. "We've worked too hard to build this culture. If you can't be part of that, then I'll have to let you go." The manager's face turned red with frustration, but Mia stood her ground. She wasn't going to allow anyone to undermine the progress they had made. It was time for her to take full control and set the standard. By the end of the year, Mia could feel the full weight of the change that had taken place. The mall had transformed, not just physically, but culturally. The employees had learned to treat every customer with respect, regardless of their appearance or background. The community had come together to make the mall a place where everyone felt welcome. Mia stood in front of the crowd at the grand reopening celebration. The new management had held up their end of the bargain, and customers were more satisfied than ever. As Mia took the microphone, she smiled. "This is just the beginning," she said, her voice filled with pride. "Together, we've built something incredible. Let's keep pushing forward. Let's keep changing the world, one person at a time."